allegiance to the flag to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it's the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. 2025.
Happy New Year.
So the first thing we'll have to go through is the election of new officers, and then obviously the new chair can decide, I guess, if they want to keep the agenda or not. But figured we could spend a little time just talking about how we're organized and how we're communicating, and figure out if there's any improvements, anything we want to do there. Then go back on the single-use plastic ordinance and discuss where we are with different communications that we wanted to support, and then work on our identification of projects that we wanted to focus on for 2025. And then the social media discussion and any township announcements. But before all that, I think we had a new member and some different guests, attending here, so I thought we'll go around and give an introduction. So I'll just start. Andy Katronik, I'm the EAB chair from last year, and we'll see. I've been on the EAB since, I think it was, September 2019? 5 years, a little over 5 years. My background, I actually got a degree in aerospace engineering and was in the satellite development world for 20 years. In 2015, I was getting bored of satellites, whatever, and decided to go back and work on a master's in sustainable engineering, focused on renewable and alternate energy. So I graduated with that in 2019. I was working full-time as well at the time. And then I started a job doing life cycle assessment, so calculating like carbon footprint and other environmental impacts of chemicals and plastics and stuff like that. So I've been doing that a little over 3 years now.
Frank McCreesh, some of you know me. I've been in the township 40 years. I was on the planning commission, chairman of the zoning hearing board, chairman of the building appeals committee. Spent my life walking around nuclear power plants with a degree in nuclear engineering and some other stuff. I'm now happily retired. I'm glad to be with this group and do what we can.
I'm Paul Krepto. This is my first night here. And accounting is my occupation, but I have a love of the outdoors and the environment and everything. I grew up in Conshohocken. I've been in Plymouth since early 90s, 93, I guess, maybe before that. I'm over here in the valley. I back up to the Pico field, so I get all kinds of wildlife coming through and checking stuff out. I'm big into trying to convert my lawn to native meadow. Well, we can talk about that some other time, but it's a project. It's a project. So I spent some time, a number of years on the Historical Architecture Review Board for Plymouth, and had told Karen that if anything ever opens up on the EAB, I'd like to take a look at that and give that a shot and stuff. So here I am. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Paul Anderson. I lived in Plymouth for a little over 30 years. I've been in the EAB, it's coming up on a year. It's about 10 months, I think. And I'm retired, and my job, I recently retired, less than a year ago. And I worked for a company that made pollution control equipment. Our main product was catalytic converters for automobiles and trucks and power plants. And I was in our research and development. I was kind of in charge of the R&D group. I'm a chemical engineer. And
Hi, I'm Ellen Miramontes, and I've my neighbor Lynn, who's on the town council. She asked me if I might consider joining the EAB, so I'm here just checking out the EAB, and I spoke with Andy over the weekend to get a little more background. I've been here in Plymouth about a little over 8 years, I guess 8.5 years. I'm from California originally. My background's in landscape architecture and urban planning. I work for the county now at the Planning Commission in their open space and trails section. So, yeah. I saw an amazing fox in my yard today, tromping through the snow, and then
One on the way
out.
over here too.
What's that?
I saw one on the way over here.
Did you, yeah, it's so beautiful against the white snow, and I've converted a big part of my lawn into native meadow area, and it was hanging out there. The birds were going after the seeds from different stuff that's there, and I think it got one of the birds. So.
I'm Nick. I'm the council liaison to the EAB board. I've been in the township for 27 years. I've been on the council for 4 years. So I'm not running for re-election, so this will be my last year.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. I am an urban forester, and I also make videos on social media about trees and plants and environmental education. I've been in Plymouth for 25-ish years, I think, and been on the board for about 2, and really into native trees and native plants and restoring our green spaces and things like that.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Carbo. I work for Plymouth Township. I'm the township liaison to the EAB board. Been with the township for over 30 years. Was born and raised in Plymouth Township. Later on, after I got married, we moved to Whitpain, so I live in Whitpain now. But been part of the EAB board since it was started back in 2008 or 2009.
Hey, Bill Saby. I was the EAB original founding member with 4 others back in 2008, 2009 with Rick. Got us started, and I think I've served until last year. I retired at the end of 2019, 2022, 23.
23.
Okay. So I've been off for a year.
1 year, yeah.
Off for a year, but I was active, or am still active with the Sierra Club, ready for 100% clean energy campaign. We got Plymouth to be a Ready for 100 community in 2019, and then I put together an energy transition plan back in 2021, which is still to be discussed. And we've got neighbors, Whitpain, White Marsh, Norristown, 19 total in Montgomery County are all Ready for 100 communities. So we're trying to grow our presence of the transition to clean energy. So that's my summary.
Okay. I'm Lena Shevde. I am in Plymouth Township since 2014, so a little more than 10 years. I am water resources engineer by trade, so very much in the sustainability and climate change and that, like working in that area. I'm on the EAB since last year, so it's almost a year now.
Thank you all and welcome. I always forget to say I've been in the township for 16 years. Everybody else does it, I always forget.
And I'm sorry, your name again? 'Cause they're-
All Crypto.
Paul, you're new, right?
Yes.
Paul is a new member of the EAB, and Ellen's deciding.
Yeah, still deciding, just to make sure I can, put the commitment in.
Surveying the class, is that what they call it? You're surveying the board to see if you want it or not.
What are they in the class, right?
With that-
Auditing the
Auditing,
class,
that's the
right?
word I'm-
Yeah, sitting in.
So I don't have any charts, but first thing we need to do is decide on new officers. So we have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, which we also kind of said is a social media person, and the secretary, obviously responsible for notes, but since we record and just post the voice recording of all our meetings, don't really need to take any notes, so it's more actually on the social media, but we call it secretary. Chair, obviously, help run the meetings, set the agenda, have a little bit more interaction with the township, just to discuss some things. Also, if we are presenting anything to council or something, tend to be the Stuckey, but not always, like solar or something. Others will be doing that too, and then vice chair, help the chair run the meetings if the chair's not here. So any self-nominations or other nominations for chair?
Will are you back on EAB or
I'm
still?
not applying, sorry.
Oh,
So Bill is not, yeah, so,
I'm semi-retired, but
So one of the members could nominate another member, or someone can nominate themselves, and then it just had to be seconded and then voted on, so.
Andy, how have you liked being chair?
well, I kind of like it, except for the fact that I'm very limited with time and kids and other activities and everything, so if I'm chair, I feel like I'm chair, and that's my role, that's what I'll do, and I really would like to help see the energy transition plan get approved this year. If others want to take the lead on that, I don't know anyone in energy background, or I'm not, just looking this way. So if others also feel energy around the energy transition plan, then, maybe I'm fine, I guess, letting others lead that, and I could just assist. But for me, chair is my full-time job, but not role. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time.
Is there a limit, like you can only be chair for 2 years or 3 years, or are there any constraints like that?
I don't think so, not for this board, no.
Hearing signs, I'll self-nominate myself to be chair for
Anyone want to?
anyone else.
I'll second that.
Oh.
I don't know if you need to do a roll call vote on that or not.
Um,
Might as well.
Well, any other nominations? I know everybody was jumping and they. All right, all in favor? All in favor? I got, all right, clean sweep. Any nominations or self-nominations or nominate someone else for vice chair?
Who's the current vice chair, do we know?
Maria was.
Oh, okay.
Vice chair, doesn't have too much to do as long as a chair. You can make the roll up, I guess, as you go, but if the chair is here, then, you help out a little bit.
we can nominate Paul.
I'll do it if you need.
Second. Any other nominations? You want to duke it out? No? All right, all in favor of Paul's?
Aye.
All right. There you go, and secretary or / social media, any nominations?
That's currently Andrew, correct?
Andrew, he's doing a wonderful job.
Not really.
But
Momentum, once you're in the position.
Well, we made some slight changes. We got a new Facebook name, Facebook background picture. We got maybe a couple new follows this year. Yeah, not much engagement on the posts, but I'd be happy to try again if no one else wants to give it a go.
Well, second or third, whatever your
And I nominate
nomination is.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to nominate? Or?
Yeah, I'm not on enough social media. I'd be interested, but I'm not, there's no way I'm going to be able to juggle all that.
yeah. No, I barely access my Facebook account, like personal account, so there's no way I can.
All right, all in favor of Andrew?
Aye. Sold.
Thank you, not too painful. All right, so any thoughts just on, I know I've kind of set the agenda, I try to send it out a little early, again, it's difficult to get out, but I just ask you guys, I say it's a draft agenda, and here's what we're going to discuss. We've been doing the meetings where we try to do a summary of each priority and then maybe have a deep dive on one. I kind of feel like actually the deep dive or some topics we've been spending a little too much time on at times. So I don't know if there's a way we could make it more efficient, and then if we could have, one or two people need to discuss some things outside of the meeting, you can handle some things that way. But anyway, just how the communication works. I know everybody's on email, as we've talked about, we're not all too active. I'm not on Facebook even. So I don't know if there's a different way for us to all communicate. But any other thoughts, ideas just on how things are run?
I don't know if you were saying this or not, but I kind of got this from you, where like sometimes in my experience here, we'll get on like the first or second issue and spend a lot of time on it. And then since it's getting late in the evening or whatever, we'll kind of not maybe give deeper, items maybe the time they deserve. That's just an observation, and maybe other people don't have that, but that's what I've seen. The plastic bag thing was big and I think worth a lot of time. But I just think if we see maybe something going like too long or getting to a point of too detail, we could say, hey, you and you, why don't you discuss this next week or in your time or something like that.
So do you think the best way to do is kind of set a time? I mean, nobody's going to be sitting here with a stopwatch, but set a time.
Right.
But I mean, understand that we all want to get home, and if I or whoever says, let's move on, guys, then is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah.
Or would you actually like to structure things a
No,
little
I don't
bit?
want it too structured. I mean, some could be going pretty good. Some could really, be going good. But some, like, you're just kind of going down a rabbit hole and
Yeah. So I also feel like it is very difficult to find another slot to work. Like yesterday, I worked with Bill, but otherwise, with everybody's schedule, I think it just becomes difficult. So we can also have like half an hour set for as working session if we are let's say working on something like last year we were working on the single-use plastic. This year probably the solar, and we are working on. So if we can take that one up and 30 minutes for dedicated one thing that we want to pursue this year, and that's kind of working, and we make progress during the meeting on that, and rest of the 30 minutes we can kind of brush through rest of the topics or what's coming, any updates and all that.
Yeah, I agree. I think last year our main focus was the plastic bag ban at first, and then once that got finished with, maybe halfway through the year, we brainstormed another list of topics we could work on, and we had
a couple folks for each topic or whatever, but I think, like Lena was saying, you get maybe focus on one issue this year and really try to work on it together. We can still have other areas that we're exploring or other topics, but maybe if we narrow it down to one or two main issues, that might help us achieve some more of our goals.
Some other committees and boards that I'm actually on, like outside of Plymouth Township, do actually have like the stopwatch. Like they have, it's actually made it really efficient. So like part of their agenda before the meeting is assigning the time limits that they want to spend on each of the topics. And so one of the person's jobs is to sit there with the stopwatch, and it's actually really increased productivity on all of the issues. Because people are more willing to jump in because you know you have a time limit. So you want to try to get stuff in while you have it. But it also like keeps the meeting running, keeping things flowing, and kind of helps sets that idea of always trying to move everything forward. So you know you have 10 minutes to work on this, and your goal is to say, at the end of that 10 minutes, can we effectively move something from where we had it at the beginning to now it's further down the line? And some of the stuff they'll send, like you said, like a 30-minute working session, like, oh, this is one of our top priorities. So at this meeting, this we're going to spend 30 minutes on. But this is just something we want to address, get an update on, so we just need to spend 10 minutes on it. So like even having like a little bit more structure on the time, from what I've seen, has actually really improved overall like meeting and productivity.
I don't know if I did put times like maybe the first month or something, but I mean, when I send out the agenda, I can put out some times, and then that can be something, some comments back and say, no, I think we're going to need 10 minutes on that rather than 5 or something.
And
It's not a bad idea.
I agree, it's a good idea to single out one item to go in depth in each meeting. I think that's what you're suggesting, right?
How did the other boards handle their time for meetings? How did you guys do it?
It was kind of zoning, you could never cut anybody off. If you cut somebody off, that could be like a legal issue, and you know, you really had to have patience. The building appeals, you could cut somebody off. But again, it's like a big issue for people. They're the township against somebody.
Oh, I see, that's a public meeting, whereas this is more just us. board
They're public
members.
meetings. And there are people, I mean, zoning, you know, some people get kind of aggravated, you know, different issues are kind of hot button, and they get aggravated. I remember being here once or twice when they were trying to build Super Fit over at the that shopping center where REI is, and there were like 30 people out here with signs and stuff like that, and you know. So to answer your question, there were none, just because there would be like legal.
Yeah, that's
You
a
know.
different format than
Yeah.
a kind of a private board.
You cut me off, you didn't let me give my point, and I'm going to, you know, protest the decision, and they had a right to do that.
I do think technically this is a public
This is
forum, so that they can come in. And I think one of the things, like, to really, even if like putting time, like I don't think there's anything wrong with the board setting like, hey, like we want to try to devote at least this much time to this, but having also the provision in there, like if members of the public see part of the agenda or come in and have something that they think they're passionate on, even though we might have said we only want to spend 10 minutes, obviously if there's members of the public here that are interested, we're going to spend more time on it. But having that flexibility, and even the same thing like having somebody with a timer isn't necessarily like it's hard to only do that, but it just like helps.
Bad idea.
Yeah, having little things. It also helps like in the wanting to cut people off. Like when you're in the conversation, it's always kind of like, really want to stop it, or you're going to say, oh, we kind of want to move on. Not everybody wants to be that person, whereas if you're the person with the timekeeper and saying, like, hey, we reached our 10 minutes, let's enter into, like, closing reflection on whatever it is we're talking about, like, a what's the word I'm trying to look for? Kind of, like, gives you permission to interject and say, yeah, let's move on.
I'm curious, do you ever have like members of the public come in and?
Occasionally, yeah.
But he's
curious about it too,
Public.
because if you have like a public comment period, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, is
Yeah.
that part of an agenda? Even if nobody shows up, is it part of your agenda every month?
I mean, actually, you know, just since it is posted, I could start putting it, but you can see it's a pretty loose form, so I mean, anybody can.
Only because when I was on the board, we like to have those people come in first, and they can come in, have their say, and go, and not stick around for all the minutia of the rest of the meetings and things. Just just to protect ourselves in case somebody does show up with something that that they want to talk about.
We do that on council too. We have ours at the end for like general public comment. But if anybody has a comment on something like on our specific agenda, like we do that right at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually was wondering that, because I was going to ask a couple of questions. I was looking at the agenda. I wasn't quite sure if there was going to be a public comment period.
So we had at a couple of our meetings this past year, members from the public show up. We had one meeting where we invited, our neighbors and whoever else that usually doesn't attend this meeting to come, and we had, I think, a pretty good, productive meeting with brainstorming and hearing ideas from outside the board. And then I think really our only other engagement with the public besides that was with the plastic bag ordinance. We had a town hall for that, and a good amount of folks from the public showed up. But as for these meetings, it doesn't happen too often, but it's certainly open to anyone.
So speaking of time limits.
Yeah, I was just gonna.
So I've got one of the public comment period. I'll add it, if we get anybody or not, but just so it's recognized. I'll put times out there for each, and then we can talk about it when I send around the agenda, and then it'll be on the agenda, so we'll know going into the meeting. And then hearing, I think, kind of stick with, I'd say that the approach that we intended, but maybe didn't always follow through on, maybe having short periods to talk about different things, but then really deep dive into 20 or 30-minute period on one main thing.
Is it worth trying to, say, we want to keep the meetings to an hour? And that way you can divvy up what's on the agenda and say, we have an hour, so we'll spend time on these different things. Is it worth doing that? And not saying it has to be over an hour, but that's like your goal. Like, we want to be out of here by 8 o'clock.
I mean, we can set the times as that, but I mean, as you see, we haven't done much today.
I'm saying go.
We didn't set times for this.
I think it just means so you have 60 minutes, so
Say, look,
5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 20 minutes on this one.
That's actually half hour slow, you realize that.
Yeah, I know, it's talking about it.
Just,
I like the idea, but I also want to keep it realistic. Are we really, I don't think we've finished in an hour or less
Yeah,
since 5 years, so
Yeah, that's just a.
mentally I try to think an hour and a half. That's the time I always have, and I think we hit an hour 45 a couple times the last year, so.
Well, see how the times work out. I mean, depending on the subject matter, maybe it's an hour and a half, maybe it's an hour, depending on the subject matter.
We'll see. We'll target.
Yeah, I'm just.
And sometimes it's like you're going through it, like when you have, like even if you do like an hour and a half and you set the time limits, we might be sitting here going 15 minutes, and then because we're actually we know we only have 15 minutes for it. 10 minutes in, we might realize, we only really need 10 minutes, and we're starting to run out of things to say on a specific item. When it's done right, exactly, it can be very helpful and useful. But I think an hour and a half to start off is divvying up is fine. Especially if you want to do a half-hour working period on something specific. And really go deep on something.
Try to target a little bit shorter.
75?
We'll have a couple extra minutes public comments. All right. Push forward.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you go back? I'm sorry. So you also mentioned up there about emails, et cetera. So how do you all communicate? Is that the way communication does through emails?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm only thinking of things like I don't like to load my phone with apps, but there are things like Meetup, or not Meetup, but GroupMe, and there are other kind of chat kind of apps that are out there that might, I don't know if everybody had ever considered actually using them for something like this. You know, you could have a Plymouth EAB chat group or something like that, and you'd have to download the app, of course, obviously. I don't know how people feel about that. But then, you know, during the week, discussions could always happen there, and just, you know, you're thinking of something, and, you know, me, I'm used to writing things down and taking them to the meeting, but maybe it's something we can put in. I'm just throwing it out there in terms of communication and things like that. It might be.
If everybody is on Google, then the Google Chat also works really well.
Okay. I don't use Google Chat, but I can try it.
I mean, you don't have to have another app.
Another app. Yeah, okay. No, okay. All right. Is that something people are interested in, or has the email? I'm new here, so I'm just asking. I mean, if the email chain has been working fine for, you know, all these years, then I'm okay with sticking with that. I'm okay with that too.
I don't know what these other apps do, but, you know, Andrew will attach charts and maps and other, you know, attachments
So
that we can open up.
GroupMe as well as the Google Chat, they both allow.
Can you do that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's just something to keep in mind going forward. You know, I mean, if the emails things work fine, then, like I said, I'm okay with that. I just thought I would ask.
I mean, I like that idea of having everything in one, rather than just in the different emails.
A whole bunch of different emails every
One of the
month.
things I do like about a chat over an email, like, it's a little bit weird because it's hard to kind of organize a full chat, like, depending on what specific things we might want to discuss about. Whereas, like, email, you can have your separate threads. I do like that you can just read through a chat, and when you reply to something, it doesn't send all, like, 50,000 emails we've sent on the thread as part of the reply. It's the one nice advantage of that.
Is the Facebook a group or is it a page?
It's a page.
Okay. Okay.
I like the idea. I guess as we research it or think about it a little more, and yeah,
Sure, absolutely. Just wanted to throw it out there.
Trying to move on to the single-use plastics. This chart's just some history and everything. Skip over that, but the notices that we are working on to try to communicate with the public. So sent out, and again, thank you, Andrew, for taking the lead here. So sewer inserts, check sent to Pat back on the 21st of December. Letter to businesses was sent to Karen, and the spring newsletter was sent to, not the letter, but our submission was sent to Karen on December 21st as well. She came back with this sign that they were working on, that the township was working on. I was a little confused as to how they all fit together. I just looked at the sentence from her email and this, I guess, going with the insert, what I read from her. But did you actually get any communication back, confirmation these are in?
Yeah, I think they wanted a more visual form of our draft sewer bill draft that we sent. So I think they just took all of our information and made their own version of it with Pickwick. That's what I understood at least. And then I sent that version around, and you guys had good comments. I forget who it was who called it the broken link. I might have been you, Frank, but yeah, we found a link and some other things, so they fixed that, and I think it's good to go.
The one you sent me that I haven't put a link on, we put it up at the community center. Was that before you found that, or? You sent me the half page and full page?
Yeah, so I think the stuff that I sent had functional links, but the one that
Okay.
someone at the township made with the pictures and stuff,
All right.
it was missing a letter. So
Just want to make sure I didn't post one. That was-
yeah, I think it was good.
All right.
So we do have something posted.
At the community center at the front desk on those little display.
Cool.
Any other
Check it out.
responses from Pat or Karen?
Yes, I think everything's good to go. I got confirmation emails and stuff, so I'm hoping to see that in the sewer bill.
So, I mean, there were comments going around to Karen's sign. Was Karen on the distribution, or did you get back to her?
I did, yeah. After you guys got back to me with comments, I forwarded them to her.
Okay. Okay.
When do the sewer bills go out, or have they gone out?
I know it's once a quarter, so I don't know when they
Okay.
go out.
I'm just curious, what's the general impression of the awareness that this is happening, like from the businesses, and are people aware that it's even happening, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, most people, because we had a lot of degrees of pushback before, like when we were like starting to roll it out. When it actually came time to vote, everybody kind of just accepted that it was happening. Quite a few were in favor of it too.
When you say everybody, you mean
Um,
like?
On the council.
Oh no, like in like citizen stuff. Because originally, like we were gonna pass it earlier than we ended up doing it because we were still getting council members were still getting feedback, and at that point, because it had started when Chris Monero and Kathy Bandish were still on council, if I remember correctly, when you originally started pushing for the plastic bags.
It's been like 2 years of
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah, because Kristen Leonard and Aaron Nelson joined at the start of last year. So Kristen was still playing a little bit of catch up, and his constituents reaching out to her, wanted to take a little bit more time just to make sure to get everything all cleared in a way. So people know
Yeah.
that it got passed and know that it's coming. And I've even seen in a couple.
Or anything.
Yeah. And some of the bigger businesses I've seen already starting to make the transition.
Okay.
So,
Giant and stuff like that.
I think
I
Dick's
haven't
Sporting
seen any signs at stores yet.
yes. Sign wise, no, but stuff that they're like.
I think once these get out, that's when it really, I think, hopefully,
Yeah.
at least business-wise, most businesses will see it, and hopefully most residents will.
And I thought that the sign, the business insert said that they didn't have to start posting the signs until the implementation date, April. So that's when the signs should go up.
I thought there was something about posting for a little while before.
It was 3 months from the or 6 months from the implementation date of April.
Okay.
Because I think the fining isn't going to be implemented till when? When did the fine go into place? I think you're giving people enough chance to adapt to it by seeing the signs.
Yeah.
And then you don't start implementing the penalty until after that period of time. I forget if we put that in the ordinance, right?
I know we set out a couple of times. I think there was a set time to pass it and then figure out exactly how we were going to like inform all the businesses, make sure that we had stuff prepared for them. So like, I think there was an initial deadline for that. Then there was a deadline until we would expect the businesses to be pushing for it. And then once a deadline for the businesses to start giving the paper bags, that's when the fines would also start. Because I think we did give enough time, but it was two sections of time. I do remember 2 different times being on it. I just forget exactly what the lines were for each. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Might be good to review the ordinance just to make sure we're all clear.
On the deadlines, yeah.
Any other communications that we need to work on here? I don't know, Nick, are you getting any I guess council requests anything else, any other support?
Requesting anything. Beyond, I always look forward to hearing updates and seeing what you guys are working on, but
I guess on your list here, you've shown what you've done so far. How about the spring newsletter? That would be a good time to get it.
Well, spring newsletter is on the list, and
Yeah, we sent it in there, so it should be in the.
Oh, I see it right there.
I think it's a half a page.
Good.
Yeah.
How about Facebook? Did you make a post yet?
We've posted about this before, but not with these.
I think we talked about putting up like like the graphic that Karen developed, or something. Now that we do anything.
Yeah, I could do that.
And then the website, actually, on the news items on the front page of Plymouth, it should probably have the latest communications. And it should probably be a new news item, because the old news item is kind of like stale. People are not probably noticing it, so it'd probably be good to just create a new news item with all the latest communications, the business insert and the residential insert, just so it's all in one place.
Do we have any update on the township website? Is that in the works?
in the works, I think. Where in the works is a great question.
I know that they mentioned a few companies they want to work with, so I don't know how far along they are, but.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it also depends on price, if it's something that would need to go out to bid.
Yeah, I'm sure that,
Given the
RFP or
scope of it, I don't know what classifies as something that needs to go on that, or what is something we can just do ourselves. And especially with technology and digital, because if it was building something like a new township building, that has to go out to bid. I don't know how a website falls under that category as well. So if it needs to, that could add more time.
I think there's like a few companies that work with a lot of the local municipalities that they're looking into, but they'll probably have to get like an RFP or something from them.
All right, so I can review deadlines and send them out, just an email, so that, just to refresh our memory on what those are. And you follow up on the Facebook page and the touch base with Brandon, like putting a link maybe to all these on the Q&A or wherever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually a news item on the front page. It'd be good just to have a brand new news item at the top, because then people notice something new's popped up.
All right, anything else? Plastics away?
Time's up.
Yeah. Pushing forward. So next topic was trying to set our 2025 agenda. This slide is just talking about our November meeting, our feedback that we got, and I've actually got still the SWOT summary that we've generated in that meeting posted here. So, and these were all the old ideas. Bigger screen in here than Stevie wanted, or I need to be more cognizant. It's very small, but I can zoom in if you want. We've talked about these really a few times. I guess the first thing, if I just put these up for a couple seconds, you think about them a little bit. But before we start talking, I was wondering if, I think at least the members that have been around for a while know that list. Is there anything outside of that list that you can think of, any new ones either came up from the November meeting or as your holiday break, as you're thinking about?
One of the things that actually kind of came into my head at this meeting, because I heard it twice, was both of you talking about turning lawns into native meadows and projects like that. And then you also mentioning, like, what do you post on a social media site if we're not really, like, aside from like a plastics ordinance, but like something educational of things that residents can do, like on their own properties, like something as simple like turning your lawn into a native meadow, like, is a great little thing to do. How do you do it? What does it look like? What do you invest in? And like, can be posts, can be videos, like tutorials showing how to go about that, like kind of those kind of efforts. Like, what are little things like a simple Plymouth resident can do just on their own property, on their own house, of their own free will, to help out the environment just as much, to also kind of give us a way to engage with them, and then when they're engaged in that sense, hopefully to engage in some of the bigger projects too. I feel like it could be like a good bridge.
Was there discussion at this meeting at one time, like getting more walking paths within Plymouth? There was,
Walking, biking, definitely.
like maybe not connectors, but, you know,
Is there ever a meeting in Plymouth Township that doesn't talk about pathways and sidewalks?
I thought that was brought up at one time. I don't know if it was dead or somebody else is doing something or whatever.
It's definitely, there's a parks master plan that has a few trails identified on there.
So that'd be like the Park and Recs. Okay, all right.
It also got added to the appendix to the 2019 comprehensive plan. So Parks, Karen Frank put together a study, and then it got added to the comp plan, so now it's in the master plan too.
The 2040 plan that was done in.
Okay. So that's kind of their job. Okay.
Right, and I mean, so I've been seeing a lot of work by at the county level. So I know that you've got a lot of work going on at Montgomery County level, but we certainly can still talk about how to feed into their plans as well. How to do little connectors or stuff like that.
So early on in the EAB, so Plymouth Township paid for that initial study
With White Marsh.
with,
Well, I mean, we paid for it, but we actually,
So what they're doing now with the bridge over Germantown Pike and going up through the corporate center, that was done by Bob Thomas, who Plymouth Township paid him to do that feasibility study. So I guess sort of that trail got started, or that extension got started by the EAB board.
yep. And then county just completed the actual advanced feasibility study, and now it's going to the next design stage, or it's ready for that. Whenever the funding gets ready for the bridge, then they'll go forward, right, Ellen?
Yeah, that's one of my projects. Yeah, it's being engineered and designed now. So we came and presented it.
Yes. Couple
So
months ago.
yeah, with the consultants, yeah. So it's definitely moving ahead, and there's a tremendous amount of funding available for the whole cross-county trail. So it's happening.
It's exciting.
Hey.
Yeah, I still think, like we were talking about how to connect into that. I mean, if we had some great, I don't know, routes off of there so that everyone in the township really had great accessibility to that trail, really interesting. Yeah.
And actually, our comp plan appendix does include that, because when Karen Frank did the study for the township trail plan, we made sure that we had connectors on Plymouth Road over to Flowertown and the Cross County Trail, and we also did a connector into the Cross County Trail at the Cracker Barrel. So we have a line going up through the Pico right-of-way here. We'd have to come under the Turnpike Bridge and go up the open space for the Pico right-of-way all the way up to Township Line Road. And then we got a connector going over to Meeting House Road, going up to Whitpain. Because Whitpain has a pretty detailed plan, so these would all connect.
One idea I had that's not on this list was just thinking about, we did plastic reduction, and then another thing we've talked about a couple of years ago was just the recycling in the township. And at the time, well, I have a very strong feeling that we're now paying a large amount for our recycling. Way back in the day, we actually made some money off of recycling. But a couple of years ago, they were talking about maybe splitting back out streams, having paper separated because it could still make money off of paper. Everything else couldn't make money off of anymore. And that, I guess, didn't go anywhere. I don't know what happened. I don't know that it'll ever catch on to force that. I mean, unless somebody in the township really decides, I don't know. There's I'm sure a lot of pushback. But I was wondering about piloting a voluntary return system to the township of like paper or cardboard. If there could be a collection point here at the township, just do a pilot with it. And if the township could still make money on paper or cardboard, if that would be something you could at least get those that are interested, they're responsive to environmental issues, if they would be willing to bring it in, drop it off here. So it's easily accessible. You don't want to have them driving back behind the building where you don't know anything or stuff like that. But somehow start a voluntary return scheme on those materials that could make some money off of. You reduce the tonnage that the trucks are having to pick up, and then the township could make some money off of it, and do it as a pilot, and then see if it grows. If not, whatever, scrap it. But just was wondering.
I think that would be a question for the Public Works Director.
Right. Idea. I don't know if I'm
You mean like there's, what is it, the Alibaba, you see those green dumpsters where they're looking for paper, and it's just recycled paper they're looking for, just like something like that, right? Is that your...
I'm not familiar with the dumpsters, but yeah, I mean...
It basically looks like a dumpster, basically, like a, 5-yard dumpster. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I don't even know if they're around anymore. They used to have them around in certain spots, and if you just park that, somewhere, like you said, somewhere not too far out of the way, and people could come by and just put their paper in there. I don't know how much that would collect over
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of...
6 months, a year. I don't know.
I mean,
a lot of these
you need a
cardboard
certain amount of
boxes, yeah.
paper
To make it worth it.
usable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know where we're at, we got all our newspapers digital now. I mean, I don't know if that's like more of the way, less paper. You get any newspaper inquires $1 a month, or I don't know, some ridiculous
cardboard,
amount just to
with
get.
deliveries.
There is a lot of cardboard.
Yes.
There's a lot of cardboard out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One spot there's one dumpster, that you can dump cardboard in, paper, junk mail, is at the Cavana back entrance off of, what's that back road called, Conshohocken Road? So if you go up there on Saturday, 8 to 4 o'clock, there's a dumpster there just before you enter the Cavana. And then so I've been putting all my junk mail and cardboard there. It's the only place I've found in the region that's reachable. So people may not know about it. Another opportunity for education, educating people. that are
Will I
interested
see that if I drive down Conshohocken Road?
So if you know where the Montgomery County Fire and Police practice area is, if you make a left there, and then the Cavana entrance is way down at the end, so you have to go kind of wind in there. And just as you get to the gate for Cavana, where you'd have to go into their property, on the left-hand side is a fence gate that's only open on Saturdays, and the dumpster is right there. So I just pull the car in, and you can dump mixed paper, cardboard, I forget what else they take.
Is it full when you go?
Actually, there have been Saturdays where I don't get there till 4 o'clock, and it is a bit full, but I still...
People are using it,
You
okay.
can go on the other side, and I still find ways to stuff stuff in there, so...
Okay, all right.
Luckily, it hasn't overflowed on the ground.
Okay.
And then they burn it, or is it?
Well, You would hope that somebody does something proper with it. I guess we could call Montgomery County recycling, but I hope they're putting it to recycled paper.
We're not putting it in the,
No, I don't think that belongs to Covanta. It's outside the Covanta property. I think it's somebody else that runs the recycling.
okay.
But that's a good point. I have not researched it.
We can't put this stuff in our regular recycling, or?
I don't know. Plymouth doesn't take paper anymore?
No, they take it, they take it. I'm trying
I just put
to
it in my.
identify one that it was a recycle stream that had value still. Was what I heard a couple of years ago when we last talked about it. And then just other ways to reduce
Gotcha,
the tonnage.
What do they do with the plastic in the recycle?
I mean, supposedly it gets recycled, but
As far as I've heard, it goes to
Yeah, I heard it
goes
goes
to
to
Covanta and gets burned.
Yeah, I heard plastic is
It's-
not being recycled.
Okay. Even
That
though
was-
people separate
In
it
general,
out and.
there's no more, nobody wants it.
Okay, so the recycling from Plymouth goes over to where? The Upper Dublin Transfer Center?
Station, yeah.
And I don't know where they take it from there.
Okay.
But I heard, and it could have changed, it's changed several times over the years on what's worth money and not, but like I heard glass and plastic, there was no market for it. So it probably goes to the transfer station, but then gets pushed out into the landfill or.
I think that's when Fair and Savage came and talked to us about the plastic bag ban problem, is that part of the situation is that a lot of plastics do end up, rather than going to landfill, they end up getting burned.
Can you do me a favor while you have that graph up there, since I can't read it even with my glasses?
Yeah, I'm gonna
What's the low graph there? What is that topic? Apply for shared energy.
Yeah.
What the low and high ones were.
yeah, so, apply for share energy manager, which I thought was in the fall, but apparently, January, but community education, environmental education series, return on environment, open space funding, a fund. Energy transition plan, we had it drafted, but look to actually get it adopted. Just doing updates on the EAB ordinance, so a couple of things we like to do there is add for associate members, and I think probably put some more stipulations on member activity and so forth. Tree preservation ordinance, that's like established trees, some sort of ordinance on removing of mature trees and so forth. Community composting, research, apply for EV charging stations on like township property. Lawn meadow ordinance, so actually kind of a little bit what we're talking about here with the meadow. Rooftop solar cost benefit, that would again be the township building GPCC. And then more funding for the walk bike.
The trails, okay.
So just to explain, for those who haven't seen it before, this was the feedback we got just from the 5 participants who did fill out our form from our November meeting. We did a meeting with community involvement, so we tried to get them to do this form. We had more than 4 or 5 people at the meeting. It was a good meeting, but only 5 did the online form. So this is just what they gave us. The bar is the average, and then the air bar on top of that is the highest and the lowest of those 5. So you see a good amount of variation for most of them. Keep trying to look if there's a laser pointing at this. I guess not. It's just a TV, isn't it? So the ones that we had been working on last year again were education series was one of our things that we were trying to focus on last year. Mostly what that did turn into was that November meeting where we really tried to involve the public more. So we would like to continue that, but this is probably still trying to get more into other education activities. The open space funding and the energy transition plan, and then the rooftop solar. Those were the four things, besides plastic ordinance, that we were trying to focus on last year. Plastic ordinance took up 90% of our energy. So we talked about some new ideas, and there's the list. We also talked earlier about maybe even limiting it more to 2 or 3, so even fewer focus points. But
Just of your list there, the tree preservation ordinance, that would probably be a pretty easy one. I know East Norton has one, White Marsh has one, a lot of communities surrounding Plymouth have them. So could easily look at some of their ordinances, and I believe that could be really powerful because, you know, the best thing is to preserve the trees you've already got, and then the next best thing is planting trees. But if we could preserve more trees, I would think there wouldn't be a huge amount of pushback, but I'm not sure about that.
I would see, for me, I thought about that. You know, you kind of start not trampling, but you start kind of crossing the line of property rights and things like that. I'd almost rather see, and I think you and I have talked about this too, is a tree replacement. If you're going to take a tree down, if you can help it, obviously don't. You can't always help it with storms and the
I think where
way.
you get into that is one, like a lot of ordinances that get into stuff like this is it's helpful that other townships already have, and I would probably bet that there's a waiver provision,
Well, and
depending on how it could be worded.
there's like
Yeah.
all different levels of tree preservation ordinance.
Okay.
So maybe when you hear that, you're thinking, oh, all trees have to be saved. But, you know, you could pick, I mean, being from California, I'm used to, you know, that you save all the native oaks, and that's like a given. You know, that's not necessarily an accepted practice here in Pennsylvania, but you could say that if it's a certain size of tree, that if you take that down, that you either replace, or you try every effort to preserve it, and if you take it down, you replace, or there could be certain parameters. So there's different levels of it, you know.
Are these trees on your own property to preserve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like in our neighborhood, when they built it, 50 houses, the builder put like a nice tree in front of everybody, and it looked really nice. Well, after about 10 years, the roots began to, you could see
Yeah,
pushing
yeah.
up people's sidewalk, which is going to incur another cost down the road. And a lot of people, everybody, like, were cutting them down before their sidewalk got destroyed, just to, you know.
It's got to be done right. It's got to be native,
Right.
and it's got to be. They got to plant them at the
If
right
this guy would have
spots.
put them 10 feet back more, but where he put them to sell the neighborhood looked beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
You walk down the street, it was like, woo, it was pretty nice.
They were, we got to get these houses,
Yeah, right.
Get the houses sold.
got to get them sold.
I know, we took ours down because you could see the sidewalk, well, neighbor sidewalks were,
But yeah, no, any ordinance in general, if other townships have it, is something a lot easier to bring to council. And I'll always say, anytime you're bringing an ordinance, especially one like that, first things council's going to ask you is what are the different criteria, like, so what trees are protected, why are they protected, what size is it, like, one of the biggest things council always wants is guidelines. So if we're going to have a policy like that on the books, what are the guidelines to enforce it? And saying, like, if it's just kind of like a general, like, oh, come and apply to see if your tree should be preserved or not, or something that, like, we want to have specific guidelines in place to say, does this fit this? Yes. Okay, so then this is the process you follow. Does this fit this? No. Do whatever you want with it. Like,
Do you know how much of? I know we have some protections under the Saldo, right? Rick, or at least some replacement requirements for developers. Does that also apply to homeowners?
I don't think so.
No.
Unless
Okay.
they
Yeah,
go through
I-
land development to do something on their property, I don't think it fits.
Okay. 'Cause I know, when you get to the higher level tree ordinances, I know White Marsh just got a new ordinance passed in the last year or so, and that's pretty good. But the problem is always enforcement, and then sometimes always hiring a dedicated urban forester or arborist just to go out to these properties who apply to have the tree removed or whatever. That's really the only way to do it, and that's for the higher level stuff. But yeah, it would be nice to have some protections, or at least replanting requirements for people who take, because I see lots of trees coming down, but not many coming back up. Yeah.
I was just going to comment on the return on environment, the open space funding. So I presented to you guys the return on environment study a few years ago. That was one of my projects at the county, and I know getting an earned income tax such as White Marsh has, I mean, they have a tremendous amount of funding for open space, and they've been able to leverage that to save the Highlands and all kinds of stuff over there. I mean, just, and then they can use that to get grants from the county or from the state, so it's really huge, but that would take a pretty dedicated effort. Lower Frederick did it a couple years ago, and they worked together with Natural Lands, and it was a big effort for them, but they're starting to build up their funds, and then they can use that to leverage to get other funding. So it's huge, but it would take a dedicated effort for sure. And there might be more pushback on that because it's more taxes.
Right.
The discussions we have with the issue wasn't the money, right? It was just identifying the actual.
It is one of the things that I know.
Spaces to preserve?
Yeah,
So part of it is spaces to preserve, and then in addition to that, in terms of addressing, doesn't necessarily have to be more taxes, because I don't know how a bunch of other townships do it, but I know I hear some townships that have specific, that when you get your tax bill, that break it up on terms of a fire services fee, an open space,
Yeah,
and
it would
have
be
them all
specific.
split up.
Yeah.
The majority of Plymouth Township taxes are all just under one umbrella, and then we have a separate, I think it's the fire and emergency services
Fire service.
fee. So that's the only one that's specifically in our budget that is set aside. So it's not necessarily you have to raise taxes to do it. It's just do we rewrite how we do the budget to include that? Because the one reason I think that we've always done it, the current way we do it, is being able to spend the money on whatever the township might need that year. Because the fire and emergency services can only be spent on fire and emergency services. You do an open space, can only be spent on open space.
I think it has to be a dedicated, if
Yeah.
you set up a program, it has to be
Be
dedicated like
to
that.
that specific,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and I guess I would say there's probably more space. I mean, I haven't done any inventory, but for example, the 1912 Club, that could very well be developed, and maybe the township would want to
Have a
purchase
fund
a
for it,
portion as open space. But if you don't, it's going to be really hard to go for the county grants or the state grants if you don't have anything to match against that. If you don't have any funds, if you say we don't have anything, give us, you're going to have a hard time.
that hasn't been brought up as one of the opportunities, but is that?
Not necessarily something that we would have thought about.
I think it was talked about before they sold it, but it's zoned as recreation and open space, so they'd have to change the zoning.
Okay, yeah,
So that
yeah,
Plymouth Country Club sold it to the current owner.
yeah.
And back then, people were a little bit worried about whether it was going to be developed, but it is zoned as open recreation and open space, so
Yeah, well, they have given their notice that they would like to leave the Act 515, the preferential tax assessment. So that just, and I only happen to know this because I work at the county and I work on the Act 515 stuff. So that is an indication that they might be interested in doing something different with the property.
So they're trying to get the zoning changed, is that what they
Well,
mean? I
they
don't
have
know
to
what
give
that
like 10 years notice. This is a couple years ago. So they're just giving notice so that they don't have to do rollback taxes. So they've given notice saying they want to go out of the Act 515 preferential tax treatment. So that indicates that they probably are interested in developing down the road. So they're
And what you're saying, excuse me, what you're saying too is that we should start banking the money now.
for opportunities like that come up. I'm just
If it's 10 years.
I'm
if
just
it's
saying
10
that's
years.
an example.
Yeah, okay.
But there's probably more than you realize in terms of open space opportunities, even if there's small lots, that could lead to those connector trails that could get
Yeah.
kids around safely. Even if you buy a lot, then you could, if you had that
Even if you
open space
develop
funding.
a small little section of the 1912 to make sure that there's a trail to get kids from like the middle school over to some of the properties
Yeah,
on
maybe
like
it's not
Terrace
the
Road,
whole
like
thing. Maybe it's just a portion of
little
it, or,
sections.
I don't know. There's
So
probably.
how do you find those?
How do you find those opportunities? Well, you either have to just know about them, or you have to, look at the property records and take a look at what you think might be opportunities, and then approach those owners.
So Plymouth Township does have a list of properties
that we keep our eyes on.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Most of which are like abut current parks. There's no 1912 club on there, but there are properties that are identified that, and I think at least some of those owners were approached with right of first refusal on some of them, so,
That's great.
yeah, there is a list.
Because I know some people say, oh, Plymouth's already developed, nothing to save or whatever, but I think there's things.
There's things. I think
there's
you're
things there.
right in that certain sense. Like some of the stuff that we see that's just not developed in the terms of anything on it is sparse. But like things like 1912 Club that maybe don't cross our mind because it's developed in the sense that there's something on the property, but it's not developed in the sense of houses in a neighborhood or a shopping center or something.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity there if that were to ever go up to.
There was some discussion in that meeting we had in November about that all the way down the Conshohocken State Road. How there's all kinds of space there. It's all industrial, I guess. But what opportunities might there be there?
So guys, it's 8:18. If you want to do an hour and a half, I think we use.
Well, I guess
I think
what I would have is, so can we get a copy of this list of the properties?
I don't think so because it has names and addresses that I don't think
Okay.
they want to be public. So I don't think so.
Can we come up with, seriously, because you and I have talked about properties, and I have some properties that I've seen, and I'm just going to throw this out here. That Caparo property that's across from 1912 on Sandy Hill Road,
That's the one we've talked
that's
about a lot, right?
that's a really nice place, man. That would make a great wedding venue or banquet thing, and it's right across from the country club. If the country club ever went out, that would be like a great little thing there. I mean, we're talking years down the road, but I mean,
So yes.
I'm just saying.
That was brought up, I think because there's no connectivity and it's landlocked by, that property's been tried, there's probably been about, I would say, 8 or 9 developers that have tried to develop that property in the last 30 years.
Really?
And because of the topography, because there's no water, there's no sewer, there's a lot of things that are holding them back. A lot of which is the topography, and it's basically rock on that. So
With the
Sandy
Hill.
Yeah.
with a house with a really cool house and the barn and everything. Is that what we're talking about?
No, I was talking about the one in the middle of Sandy Hill Road. It's a 7-acre property that's.
Oh, right. We've talked about that. No, I'm talking about further up next to the dentist office. It's got the
Right here at
it's
the
got the-
corner of
yeah, it's got the-
Sandy Hill and Belvoir.
yes, it's got the wrought iron fence around. It has like a really nice looking house and
That's,
the
that's
barn.
Paul, that's Paul Tornetta's house.
It was Tornado. Oh, I thought it was Capara. Tornado. Okay.
Yeah, he bought that from the judge years ago. He totally renovated that whole project. It's like a 7-acre
It's
property.
beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Every time I drive by that, I think,
So-
gee, I really wished I could be saved at some point in the future.
So the town,
That's
just real,
something that might even go to like a harb. I don't know how old that house is.
It's not in the historical district, though. That's the problem.
so years ago, the township was under agreement of sale for the historical society property on Sierra Road.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And one of the ideas there was a wedding venue in the barn
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a whole big playground parking lot. And there was a lot of pushback from the neighbors because
Traffic and parking.
traffic,
Yeah.
weddings on Saturday night.
Yeah, I get that.
So that wasn't the only reason why it didn't go through, but that was one of the reasons.
I mean, I guess one conclusion I kind of came to, we've talked about this a number of times, and it's like, well, there's a list, and there's money, and if something on the list comes up, we have money, and there's really nothing to be done. That's kind of where we got to.
Especially in
Is
terms
there
of,
dedicated money, though?
is there
Is there
dedicated money? No.
Dedicated
money. It's,
But the record is good when these properties come up that are on the list of Plymouth buying them.
yeah,
But
You know,
because they're small, they're usually smaller properties. Like,
$20 or something.
like abutting like a current park, so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this one little house goes up.
Yeah.
Like, I think
could
there was
do
one
it.
near the community center
It was actually a
a
couple
couple
of
of
years.
years. Like, I know since I've been on council, there was at least one, I think it was near the community center that went up,
Tops.
and we bought it.
They're there
Just
for
because,
a long time.
just to
That
like
one,
level
yeah,
it
yeah,
down
yeah,
and
yeah.
Just put a new roof on.
Yeah, I know. They're
expand a piece of public
Down on
space
that.
we already have.
Yeah.
Versus buying something that's presently private and not near anything public.
Yeah.
So like the one property
818
that we were talking about off of Sandy Hill, that we thought you were talking about, that
Well, that's okay. We can talk about that too, because I talked to Andrew about that house.
we're like, we don't buy that, like, that little section right across from Plymouth Town Apartments is, because the topography's so bad, there's no water, there's no sewer, like, nothing.
He says Rocky too under
It's
there,
rocky.
so they wouldn't be able to build on there really any.
all the standards they need to meet has been
Costs too much money for them to do
every
that
single developer
site
from
work.
being able to do it. Like, they won't be able to make any money off of all this investment they would have.
Okay, okay, it's
So
interesting.
it's one that we still keep our eye on, but it's not. And the other difficulty is they can't develop anything on it. But if we were to buy it as Plymouth Township, what do we do with it? Besides just, it's just going to continue existing as itself. So it's one of the reasons they get.
The kind of thing you put a little trail or picnic tables back. I haven't walked the property. I don't know what's back there, but
It's within a bunch of other private properties. Like there's.
well, I looked at the map. It looks like the house is in the front, and then
Yeah.
it goes down,
So
and
the-
it's
so
like
the
back to
house, the
back.
house was purchased and joined to the property. That property was separate.
Okay.
The last developer, or two developers ago, purchased that house on Sandy Hill and then joined it to the other
Okay.
6.5 acres.
Yeah.
So that was, one of the problems, and I don't want to, I know you want to get out of here, but one of the problems was, how do you get in there?
Yeah.
You can get in from Penn Road, or you
Okay.
can get in from River Road. River Road's private. The owners don't want anybody going in there. So now that they have this property, but again, the people on either side of that, they don't want a road going in with houses on, you know.
I guess I thought the house was part of the lot, and you could just use the existing driveway.
It is now. It is.
Okay.
Two developers ago, he purchased that house and it joined it to whatever the 6 acres was
Yeah,
back
okay.
there. So it is now.
Okay.
But
It still has all the other
there's
difficulties.
there's a lot of issues.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Just to say, in terms of council, like, issues that I think you should definitely pursue for this, the stuff that in future meetings we should probably spend a good bit of time on is how to approach getting a dedicated funding or a dedicated fund for open spaces, and how to evaluate opportunities, I think, is a big one, because maybe we don't evaluate them in the, like, certain opportunities, yes, that abut the public, but a ton that we're probably missing or not thinking far enough in advance for it to be ready to pounce
Well,
on.
the
Yeah.
EAB could funnel ideas to your proprietary list, you know.
Yep.
But I think that direction, and then the tree preservation ordinance would be something to explore these in terms of stuff that I see as like directly related to council versus stuff that you're going to interact with council for versus stuff that's we're doing.
Strictly.
I think those two things could be very
Might as well
successful and very good, very.
Might as well throw the meadow in there because Whitpain has an ordinance you could just copy.
Good.
The lawn conversion stuff?
Yeah, but
Really?
Whitpain has a really pretty detailed ordinance. I haven't studied it to see whether it's what you'd like, but if you want to review it, I can forward it.
And I think all of those would be both doable and amenable.
And there are like a lot of existing resources that people could just be pointed to, like through PHS and like you probably know a ton, Andrew. I mean, I know White Marsh, their EAB has a whole effort going on native gardening. And they have some kind of thing where they're encouraging, they're going to have people put signs up in, you know, native garden or something.
Well, I thought it would also be nice, like at some point after this has a chance to mature a little bit, like a garden, like a garden tour kind of thing. Like people used to do those years ago, and you used to be able, you know, sign up for a garden, and people can drive, or if you don't mind, people driving around, seeing your yard.
The Christmas
holiday
lights,
lights?
the holiday
Yeah,
lights
something like that,
contest
yeah,
that we
something
do in
like that.
December. That's not like a bad idea to have in like a summer, like as summer's winding down, like a
Yeah.
garden tour, or at
Actually,
different times of years, like
that's-
different garden tours.
That's a really cool idea. That I've seen those a lot in California, and if gardeners like, I would love to show people my.
For people
my
that might always
meadow.
say like, oh, I kind of want to do it, like if
Well,
it's a hobby they want to get into.
ideas.
Now all of a sudden there's a contest related to it. I know that could be a big motivator to
It
pick up a
wouldn't be like
specific.
the holiday lights exactly, because you would need to get out of your car and like look around a little
Yeah.
bit, but similar
I still think
idea.
I still think like that a good way to bring some fun to it and connect the community beyond just gardening for your own house.
All right, so, yeah, we
Some good idea.
need to thank you, yeah, it was a good conversation. We don't need to decide anything, we can do it, I guess, through email, and then try to close next month. Do we agree?
Agree.
So we'll continue, I guess, through email, but no, thanks for the conversations. I'll try to summarize a little bit and send something out, and we'll continue through email, and like I said, come February, and let's plan on selecting ideas, okay? Social media posts, I mean, really quick, I think we've already talked about, put the sewer bill insert or something from the single-use plastic reduction ordinance up there. And since we haven't decided on our priorities, we can't put that up there yet, but we can do it next month or whatever. Any other ideas, quickly?
We can we schedule date with council for the solar proposal?
Oh,
March.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were already ready for that, yeah.
Yeah, so next month's meeting, we can do dry run, and then March, we can probably just, if that's possible, to get.
Probably good to email Karen and ask to be put on the March workshop, because they only take 2 presentations.
It may already be spoken for, but you could, I would definitely sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, will you send that email?
Yeah, I can, right. March.
March.
Were there other social media posts? We're good.
Are we just on Facebook? Is there anything else
Yeah,
we're
just
doing?
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just, Rick, you have anything?
I mean, you know, nothing really. We have the bid opening for the natatorium renovation project. That's going to be Thursday. So that's kind of something we've been looking to do for quite a while. So it's going to be interesting to see where those numbers come in at. So that's really the larger project for me going forward. And then, you know, the budget was approved. So there's some small park projects. There is, there's some fencing that's going in at, back here at the Public Works Garage. There's, trying to think what the major park projects are. Yeah, I don't think there's, you know, I'm buying a new dump truck. That's a large item. There are some renovations to the soccer fields at the community center, upper and lower fields. That's, you know, they're the larger projects. So,
The community center, that's supposed to be like the pumps in here? Or?
it's the whole mechanical room, and then there's also a lot going on in the pool itself, new painting the roof deck, painting the trusses, all new hangers for the ductwork. There's an alternate in the bid that right now the spa, the jet pumps, we're losing, there's a leak somewhere. So we have an alternate in there to determine where the leak is and a unit price to dig up the pool deck. So we'll see where that's at. May or may not do that. All new pumps, motors, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. A lot of work, yeah.
How's the building comfort dealing with this cold snap?
We have to work through all the seasons. I'll say that we have some issues. We have some problem areas that we just can't figure out. But for the most part, I mean, you know, it's mostly comfortable.
So I feel comfortable in here. I was kind of wondering, and this is big open space. So.
Yeah, I mean, we have like I said, we have a couple problem areas, evidence and evidence processing. We just can't seem to figure out what the issue is. There's some offices that abut the outside walls that, you know, we're having trouble heating up. So we'll figure it, you know. We went through the summer, kind of got a handle on the dehumidification in here, so I guess we'll, you know, go through the winter and work out all those little, you know, hiccups.
Have you noticed whether your electric bills have changed much from previous years?
I haven't had a chance to look at them since we are fully, you know, there's still some, we're still, you know, there's a single service now where before there were two services, one Public Works, one here. Now the main service comes in the building and then there's a breaker that feeds Public Works. So we'll have to, I mean, not that it's a big deal, but we'll have to figure it out, you know, that way also add those bills together and see what the combined bills were. Yeah.
Take a look at what data is being collected on the Energy Star website or whatever.
We never got that implemented, did we?
No, it is.
Yeah, we
there's
did.
data.
We haven't updated anything.
Right, it never, right. It automatically goes in, but there was some restructuring that we wanted. I can't
We had
remember.
trouble,
never-
something.
So there's
reporting on
no,
it.
there's no criteria for, you know, there's schools, there's hospitals, there's no community center, which is kind of like a school, but not really like a school because we're open on weekends, the schools aren't. So there was really not, there's like a government type, you know, category. So I don't think we really had a legitimate way to compare with the community center anyway.
And I guess
We
since,
did get $27,000 from PICO for the submitted reimbursement for all the LED lighting, so we did have that money.
So, I put in a recommendation to Karen Weiss to apply for the shared energy manager by the end of August, or January. So there's only 10 days left. Do you know if she's gonna do that?
She's on vacation, so I don't think so. I don't know, I mean.
Well, it's a free service to the township, so it's an opportunity to have a consultant.
Is that the same one we talked about from before?
Could be.
talked
Yeah, we
it
talked about it last year.
month, and
Yeah, but it's like
Is this
there's,
the one from Paul's, the one we talked about from Practical Energy Solutions, that one?
well, I don't know who the contractor is. They're similar. Whoever the contractor that the PADEP is put an RFP out, they would be the ones to come in and consult with you.
Okay.
So I don't know whether it's Paul's group or not.
Okay.
But it just gives us township some free service to have this extra energy expert come in and advise you on a lot of different choices you're gonna make over the next year. And the cohort is opening, so the January 31st deadline gives us an opportunity to be in the next year's cohort. You know, so in a sense.
She'll be back before that.
So in a sense, you know, the solar evaluation that Lena's putting together and other things, you could consult with them just to say, hey, you know, I've got this, you know, just to get a second opinion on anything you're doing for any equipment upgrades. So I think it's a prime opportunity. I'd hate to see the township miss it.
Yeah. Yes, I think she comes back Monday.
Cool.
When would it start? When would it start?
You know, on the PADEP website, it just says the applications are due by January 31st, so I'm not sure exactly when they start the 12 months with the consultant, but they get like 20, they take 20 municipalities across Pennsylvania, so it's going to be a, you know, random bid as to whether you get in or not. But of the 20 municipalities, this consulting firm would allocate, you know, time to each of those 20 municipalities over the year, and you could go back to them multiple times, you know, so they might give you a few hours on, say, I want the advice on this. Then you come back, hey, we want a solar evaluation, maybe they give you 10 hours on that. So it depends on how many other demands they have around the whole year.
I mean, you could forward it to Linda, or is Matt on?
He is, yeah. He's, I mean, I don't know that, is he officially, he's like manager in, I don't know. I don't know if he's actually the manager yet, but he's here.
What is yeah? Because I know, I don't exactly know what his official start date in the office of manager is, because it was structured around, because we wanted to make sure that there was time where he was here with Karen. But either way, I would say include him when you're contacting Karen.
And how about I'll copy you just because you're our liaison?
Sure, absolutely.
Anything else?
That's it.
So any other comments from public? Any other motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion?
Thank you.
We're getting better at it.